After the last family dinner at my in-laws' house, I feel like I need some outside perspective to reassure me that I'm not losing it. I'm 32 and my husband's 34. We've been together for nearly 10 years and married for 6. From the start, we wanted kids. We didn't crave the typical white picket fence life, but we did want to experience building a family together. Unfortunately, life hasn't gone that way. We've faced immense challenges trying to conceive. We've gone through fertility treatments, countless doctor appointments, and medications that took a toll on my body. The number of negative tests is more than I can count. Each month felt like receiving a little coffin to bury my hopes. My husband has been supportive, but I could see the sadness taking a toll on him as well. We never discussed our struggles with extended family. We kept it between ourselves and a few close friends. Then, last week happened. We were at my mother-in-law's house for Sunday dinner, along with my father-in-law, my husband's 2 sisters, and their families. It was loud with kids running around everywhere, just the usual chaos. Then my sister-in-law made a casual comment about when it's your turn to add to the cousin pile. I'm not sure what came over me. Maybe I was just worn out. Maybe I was tired of hiding our struggle. I finally said it. We've been trying for years. I can't have kids. It's not happening. The table fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. My husband squeezed my hand under the table, but he didn't say anything. Then my mother-in-law let out a dramatic sigh after pausing and said, "Well, at least now it's out in the open and I have an idea." Her idea? Instead of wasting money on more treatments, we should redirect our resources to help my sister-in-law raise her kids. She actually suggested I fund one of my sister-in-law's children, pay for their school, their clothes, and maybe even start a college fund. Treat them like my own from a distance. It would give her some relief, she said, and we'd get the experience of being parents without all the hassle. I froze. Certain I'd misheard her, but she repeated it, grinning like she just solved some brilliant puzzle. She insisted we'd still get to say we were providing for a child, asking if that wasn't what truly mattered. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her no. If we couldn't have biological kids, we would adopt. We would raise our own children, not rent someone else's from across town like foster parents with no rights. She waved her hand dismissively, acting like I was being difficult, pointing out that adoption was expensive and asking why I would want to bring in a stranger's child when I could focus on my own bloodline. That was when it hit me. She didn't see me as part of their bloodline at all. I was just a source of funding in her eyes. My sister-in-law looked embarrassed, muttering something about not needing handouts, but mother-in-law interrupted, insisting it wasn't charity, that it was family, and that everyone took care of each other. My father-in-law kept eating as if nothing was wrong. My other sister-in-law tried to change the subject, but mother-in-law wasn't done. She leaned across the table, locking eyes with me, accusing me of being stubborn and asking why I'd hoard my money for some fantasy adoption when I could make a real difference for family. I snapped back that I wasn't here to buy myself a child to raise from the sidelines. I wanted to be a mother, not an ATM. The table went silent. My mother-in-law pursed her lips and stood up, announcing she needed air. Since that dinner, she's been on a rampage. She called my husband crying about how I humiliated her in front of her family. She told extended family that I was money hoarding and selfish because I'd rather waste money on adoption than help the kids already in the family. She painted it like I think her grandchildren aren't good enough. People are calling me selfish, saying I'm jealous of my sister-in-law, and accusing me of being too prideful to accept reality. My husband is caught in the middle. He says he supports adoption, but doesn't know how to calm his mom down. He wants me to just ignore her, but it's hard to ignore when cousins are sending me messages asking why I snapped at mother-in-law when she was just trying to help. I'm left with the narrative mother-in-law spun. That I'm an egotistical monster who doesn't care about family and just wants a pretty baby to show off. Meanwhile, I'm grieving my infertility again because instead of comfort, I got lectured about how my worth lies in funding other people's children. I wanted family support. Instead, I feel like I'm seen as just a wallet with non-functioning ovaries. Update 1. I didn't think things could get worse after that dinner, but my mother-in-law has taken it upon herself to sully my name. Honestly, I think she's enjoying it. The week after that dinner, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Not from mother-in-law directly. She hasn't called me since, but from other relatives. A cousin I rarely talk to called to tell me I hurt my mother-in-law's feelings by snapping at her. Suggestion. An aunt left a voicemail about how family is supposed to care for each other, not turn up their noses. It was clear mother-in-law had been busy. She'd been working hard to frame the situation as if she made a kind suggestion and I lashed out. She conveniently omitted the part about telling me to buy myself a child indirectly. I told my husband plainly that I needed him to support me. I didn't expect him to call everyone and scream, but I did want him to say, "Hey, my wife isn't selfish. She's grieving. Stop making it worse." Instead, he said, "You know how my mom is. She doesn't mean harm. If we ignore her, it will blow over." I lost it. I said, "It's not blowing over if people are accusing me of being selfish for wanting to adopt. That matters. That's her twisting the story to make me the bad guy." He rubbed his face and muttered that he didn't want to get in the middle. That frustrated me because we're married. He's already in the middle whether he likes it or not. Then came the worst part. Mother-in-law has been telling people that the real reason I don't want to help my sister-in-law's kids is because I'm money hoarding. She claims I don't want to share because I care too much about status symbols. This hurt especially because I've been budgeting tightly for years, cutting corners and saving everything we can for our future child. The idea that I'm hoarding when I've cried over bank statements trying to figure out how to make it work absolutely devastated me. To her credit, my sister-in-law, the one whose kids were supposedly going to be funded by us, did reach out. She sounded embarrassed and she said, "I don't understand why Mom is pushing this. I never asked for your money. I don't want it." She admitted mother-in-law was out of line, but also begged me to let it go since she can't handle the stress right now. I told her I'd never been angry at her, just at mother-in-law, but I wasn't going to pretend that mother-in-law's suggestion was acceptable. She sighed and said, "Then I don't know what to tell you because she's not going to drop it." That night, after another fight with my husband, I decided I'd had enough. I typed a message to the family group chat. I wrote, "Let me be clear. I am not selfish. I am not hoarding money. I am not too proud to accept reality. What I am is someone who has endured years of pain and loss in trying to build a family. If adoption is our path, that is what we will do. It is not selfish to want to raise our own children, not support someone else's from the sidelines. Please stop spreading lies about me. Please stop calling me names, and please stop contacting me if your only intention is to make me feel worse." I hit send and turned my phone off. When I turned it back on, the chat had exploded and my mother-in-law wrote, "You didn't need to tell everyone. I was just trying to help. Adoption is a waste when family needs you." My other sister-in-law commented, "You embarrassed Mom in front of the whole family twice now. Is that really necessary?" My father-in-law, of course, said nothing, like usual. But here's the surprising part. Two cousins spoke up, and one said, Honestly, I think it's cruel to pressure someone like this. Adoption isn't selfish, it's love. Another added, "This is none of our business. Stop dragging her when she has been through enough." For the first time, I felt like I wasn't shouting into a void. Mother-in-law was furious. She called my husband, sobbing that I'd humiliated her yet again by making it public. She claimed I'm dividing the family. She even used the phrase, "She's tearing us apart at the seams." When my husband relayed this to me, I asked, "And what did you say back?" He went quiet before admitting, "I told her you're stressed and maybe she should back off." Not that she's wrong, not that she needs to stop lying, just maybe back off. That wasn't enough for me. I'm done being nice. I told my husband that if he can't publicly support me, I will handle this on my own. He didn't like that, but didn't stop me either. I don't know how this will end, but I'm sure about one thing. I won't allow my infertility to become her weapon. I've already dealt with enough pain. I refuse to let her use it to humiliate me into silence. Update 2. I thought the situation with my mother-in-law had peaked, but I underestimated how far she would go when she feels her control slipping. 2 weeks ago, my husband asked if I'd accompany him to his parents' house. He described it as a small get-together. He said his mom wanted to apologize. Despite my doubts, I went along. Part of me hoped that the previous group chat fallout had embarrassed her enough to cause her to back down. We arrived around 5 p.m. I stepped inside, and immediately my stomach sank. It was not a small get-together. It was mother-in-law, father-in-law, both sister-in-laws, their husbands, and even a couple of aunts, all sitting in the living room like a jury waiting for a verdict. I looked at my husband, and he couldn't even meet my gaze. Mother-in-law jumped right in, her tone forced as she insisted they all just wanted what was best for me. They wanted me to stop being stubborn and consider other options. There were children in the family who could benefit from my support, she said. And instead, I was wasting money chasing fantasies. I didn't even sit down and replied that this wasn't an apology, it was an ambush. Sister-in-law chimed in, saying it wasn't an ambush, it was love, that they were just trying to reach me. I laughed genuinely because the whole thing was so ridiculous. I told them they couldn't ambush me in their living room and call it love. Love meant respecting someone's grief, not using it against them because it didn't meet their expectations. Mother-in-law clutched her pearls, literally clutched them, she was wearing them, and accused me of turning everything she did into an attack, asking why I couldn't accept help. I snapped back that this wasn't help, it was turning me into a walking checkbook for kids who already had parents. The room went dead quiet. The part that hurt the most was my husband. He just stood there, didn't speak up for me, didn't call out his mother. He just stared at the carpet like a little boy caught between a teacher and a class bully. I looked at him and asked if he had anything to add or if he was just going to let them gang up on me. He muttered that he didn't want to fight in front of everyone. That was it. His big contribution, while the rest of his family lined up to tear me apart. Sister-in-law, too, the one with the kids mother-in-law wanted us to fund, finally tried to stop it, insisting it wasn't fair and that she didn't need or want my money. Mother-in-law interrupted, snapping that she was being ungrateful and blind to an opportunity. And that was it for me. I took 2 steps closer, looked directly at mother-in-law, and made it clear that I was not going to bankroll her grandchildren. I was not selfish, not egotistical, and I would not sit there and be humiliated while they pretended this was love. This was control. This was manipulation. And I was done. Then I turned to my husband and told him he could come with me or stay there, his choice. He hesitated, frozen for a solid 10 seconds. I shook my head and walked out. I drove myself home. He came back later that night sulking like a teenager who'd just been grounded. When he walked in, I didn't even let him sit down. I told him he had let them corner me, stood there while they called me selfish and money hungry, let his mother make a scene without saying a word to defend me, and asked if he knew what that felt like. He tried to explain that he didn't want to make things worse. I exploded, asking, worse for who? For me? For the woman who had cried for years over negative pregnancy tests? Who had sat through shots, hormones, and humiliating exams just for the chance to have kids with him? Did he really think defending me would have made it worse? Did silence make it better? He had no answer. I told him I was starting to think I wasn't just fighting his mom, I was fighting my own husband. And if that was the case, maybe I didn't want to be in this marriage at all. The color drained from his face. The next morning, he left for work early. No kiss, goodbye, no I love you, just gone. Meanwhile, I woke up to texts from mother-in-law. She said she was disappointed in me for storming out, that I embarrassed my husband by making him choose sides. She said I was tearing him apart with my selfishness. I didn't respond. I blocked her. Later, sister-in-law 2 texted me privately and apologized again. She said she tried to stop them, but her mom shut her down. She said she admired me for standing my ground, and that meant more to me than I can say. I've been thinking about the reality that maybe my marriage isn't fixable, because here's the thing. I can deal with mother-in-law. I can handle family gossip. What I can't handle is a husband who thinks staying neutral is an option when his wife is publicly humiliated. Neutrality is siding with the abuser. Silence is complicity. I told him last night that I'm done. I'll file. I won't spend my life fighting both infertility and a husband who won't fight for me. I suggested therapy. He said he'd think about it. I don't know if I want him to think about it. I want him to act, but right now I'm not sure he has the courage. For now, I'm leaning on my family, my friends, and the few relatives in his family who actually understand. And I'm realizing that whether I adopt or not, the kind of mother I want to be starts with being someone who doesn't let her child grow up thinking this treatment is normal. If that means leaving, then maybe that's the way forward. Update 3. After the staged intervention at mother-in-law's, I thought my husband would finally see how deeply this had hurt me. I thought he'd understand that silence isn't neutrality, it's abandonment. Instead, he sulked. He brooded, and when he did speak, it was always about keeping the peace, not protecting me. It all came to a head 3 nights ago. We had been walking on eggshells, dinner together but barely talking. Him retreating into his phone, me sitting at the table staring at adoption websites like a ghost of the woman I used to be. There was a weight in the air, heavy and invisible, pressing down on both of us. He finally broke the silence. He said he'd thought about what I said, about therapy, about standing up to his mother. Then he said he didn't know if he could go against her like that. It was so simple, so casual, like he was commenting on the weather. But those words cracked something inside me. I asked him what he thought marriage meant. Was it just convenience, shared bills, someone to sit next to on the couch, or was it supposed to be partnership, loyalty? The one person who stands between you and the rest of the world when it gets rough? He said I was being dramatic, that family is complicated, that I was putting him in an impossible position. I told him he had already made a choice and it wasn't me. He insisted he hadn't chosen anyone, that he just wanted to keep everyone happy. I felt my chest burn. I said keeping everyone happy is a coward's way of saying you let your mother bully your wife because it's easier than standing up to her. He raised his voice. He said I was twisting things, making him the villain. I fired back that he had made himself the villain by sitting in silence while his family tore me apart, by hesitating to leave with me when I begged him to walk out of that ambush together. He tried to argue that I should understand that she's his mother, that he can't just abandon her. And that was when the words slipped out before I even realized I was saying them. You already abandoned me. There it was, the truth. The thing I had been dancing around for months, maybe years. He abandoned me every time I injected hormones alone while he took phone calls from her. He abandoned me every time he let her pressure us for grandkids without telling her about our pain. He abandoned me when he let her call me selfish and money hungry without defending me. I told him everything, every raw, ugly piece, that he had left me to carry not just the burden of infertility, but the shame, the grief, the humiliation of being publicly mocked for it, and that I couldn't do it anymore. He sat there, red in the face, fists clenched, but he didn't interrupt. For once, he listened, and when I finished, I told him to pack a bag. He tried to protest, saying we could work on it, that I needed to calm down, that kicking him out was an overreaction. I said no. I said I wanted peace in this house, even if it meant being alone. I said I wasn't going to keep sleeping next to someone who let me bleed out in front of his family while he watched in silence. He called me cruel. He said I was destroying our marriage. I told him the marriage had been falling apart for years, and the only thing destroying it was his failure to choose our life together over the mother who still treats him like a child. And then I told him again, pack a bag. This time he did. When the door closed behind him, I braced myself for regret, for grief, for loneliness, but what I felt instead was silence. Not empty silence, peaceful silence. The kind that doesn't weigh on you, that doesn't make you feel like you're drowning. We didn't have kids yet, and that made the silence both sharper and cleaner. It was just me in the house, no footsteps upstairs, no car in the driveway, but for the first time in months, maybe years, I could breathe. Of course, mother-in-law found out within 24 hours. She called me from a number I didn't recognize, probably because I blocked her regular one. Her voice was sharp, brittle with anger. She said I had manipulated her son, poisoned him, driven him out of his own home. She called me selfish, money-obsessed, bitter, and said I was punishing him because I couldn't give him children. I didn't engage. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I just hung up. That was the first time I realized I didn't owe her anything. Since leaving, he's been sending texts, long rambling ones about how he loves me, how he didn't realize how bad it had gotten, how he's willing to try therapy if I'll just let him come back. But every message is still colored by the same hesitation. He never says he'll cut off his mother. He never says he'll defend me no matter what. He says he'll try to balance both. And I've realized that balance is just another word for betrayal when your wife is the one bleeding on the battlefield. I've been sitting in the quiet, cooking for one, taking walks by myself, journaling late at night, and you know what? I don't feel broken. I don't feel lost. I feel lighter. For years I thought I needed him to share this grief with me, but he never did. He carried his mother instead, and I've been carrying myself all along. I'm starting to think I don't want him back. Not because I don't love him. Maybe some part of me still does, but because love without protection, loyalty, and action is useless. It's like a lock without a key, a car without an engine. Looks fine from the outside, but it won't take you anywhere. Adoption is still an option. It always has been, but right now the thought of raising a child with a man who won't protect me from his family's cruelty feels like setting myself and that child on fire just to keep everyone else warm. So I'm pausing, I'm sitting in peace, I'm allowing myself to breathe without my mother-in-law's shadow hanging over my home. And if he wants back in, he'll need to do more than promise. He'll have to prove it. I'm not going back into the storm just because he's scared to stand alone. Update 4. It has been almost 2 months since I kicked my husband out, and I think this will be my last update. Many of you asked me to keep writing, and I appreciate the support, but I finally feel ready to close this chapter of my life. At first, the house felt strange without him. I found myself waiting for the sound of his keys in the door, the shuffle of his shoes in the hallway, or the familiar sound of him flopping onto the couch after work. But as I spent more time in the quiet, it stopped feeling strange and started to feel familiar. I no longer live with constant tension in the air, the dread of another fight about his mother or the silent resentment building between us. It's just me, my thoughts, and instead of feeling suffocating, that quiet has become comforting. Peace doesn't seem like much when you describe it. It's the hum of the fridge, the click of the thermostat, my own voice singing badly while I cook, but also years of noise, both literal and emotional. Peace feels revolutionary. He's been trying, I'll give him that. He's gone to therapy, sent me long messages about how he understands now, how he'll set boundaries with his mother, and how he knows he let me down. But there's still hesitation. He keeps suggesting that we can all find a way to coexist if I just give it another chance. There's also a hint of fear in him about really standing up to her. I realize something. I don't want to spend my life waiting for him to grow a spine. I don't want to gamble my future child's well-being on the hope that he will choose us over her in tough situations. He wants another chance. I want a future without this constant conflict. Those two wishes don't match anymore. My mother-in-law has gone quiet for once, and the last round of blocked calls and ignored messages, she seems to have figured out that I won't bend. I still hear through friends that she's sulking, telling anyone who will listen that I destroyed her family, poisoned her son, and that I'm selfish. But here's the thing. I don't care anymore. Her words don't affect me. They bounce off because I finally understand they're not really about me. They're about her control, her power, and her need to be at the center of everyone's lives. I've stepped outside of her orbit. The hardest part of this was realizing that my dream of raising a child might not include the man I thought it would. I imagined us adopting together, late night talks and those first steps into parenthood. Now I'm starting to view it differently. I've been reading stories from single mothers by choice, women who decided to move forward and build a family without waiting for the perfect partner. The more I read, the more it resonates. Maybe I don't need to wait for a man who won't stand up for me. Maybe I don't need to tie my dream of being a mother to a failing marriage. Maybe I can do this on my own if it comes to that. It's scary, yes. Adoption as a single woman is complicated. It will require resources, which I have built up, patience and grit. But infertility already taught me grit. Surviving my mother-in-law's cruelty taught me patience. And standing up for myself showed me that I am stronger than I ever thought. So yes, if this marriage ends in divorce, I will still adopt. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but someday I refuse to let someone else's control, fear, or cruelty decide whether I can become a mother. I've been journaling more, trying new recipes, and even running in the mornings just to feel the air in my lungs. I've started reconnecting with friends I'm distanced myself from during the chaos of treatments and family drama. I've realized how much of myself I lost trying to please people who never respected me. I'm starting to find myself again, not the broken woman crying over another negative test, not the humiliated wife sitting silently while her in-laws tore her apart. Just me, stronger, quieter, steadier. Do I still want love? Of course, but not at the expense of my peace. Not by silencing myself to keep someone else comfortable. If love comes again, it will be with someone who stands beside me, not behind me. I haven't filed for divorce yet, but I'm leaning that way. Each day that passes without him showing real courage makes the decision easier. He may never realize it, but the night I kicked him out was the night I stopped waiting for him to change. And once you stop waiting, once you stop hoping someone will be who you need, it becomes easier to picture a future without them. That's where I am now, imagining a future where I can be the mother I want to be, the woman I want to be without dragging dead weight. So that's it. My mother-in-law can keep sulking, my husband can keep hesitating, and the rest of the family can keep whispering. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.